starting the recording.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaeva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudidayet. Swatam Swakatah Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Hridiyantosteya Bhadrani Vidinoti Suhitsatam Nastaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So we're reading from Canto 1, Chapter 5, verse number 22 from Srimad Bhagavatam. Idham hi pumsas tapasah shrutasya va shvishtasya suktasya cha buddhitayoha avichyuto artaha kavibhir nirupito yad uttama shloke gunanvarnanam. Idam hi pumsas tapasah shrutasya va shvishtasya suktasya cha buddhitayoho avichyuto artaha kavibhir nirupito Yad uttama shloke gunanvarnanam idam hi pumsas tapasah shrutasya va swishtasya suktasya cha buddhidattayoh avichitto arthaha kavibhir nirupito yad uttama shloka gunanvarnanam. Idam, this, he, certainly, pumsa, of everyone, tapasa, by dint of austerities, Shutasya, by dint of study of the Vedas, Va or Sutasya, sacrifice, Suktasya, spiritual education, Cha and Buddhi, culture of knowledge, Dattayoha, charity, Avichutaha, infallible, Arthaha, interest, Kavibhi, by the recognized learned person, Nirupitaha, concluded, yet what? Uttama Shloka, the Lord who is described by choice poetry, Gunanuvarnanam, description of the transcendental qualities of translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental description of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. Purport. Human intellect is developed for advancement of learning in art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, politics, etc. By culture of such knowledge, human society can attain perfection of life. This perfection of life culminates in the realization of the Supreme Being. That those who are actually advanced in learning should aspire for the service of Lord Vishnu. Unfortunately, persons who are enamored by the external beauty of Vishnu Maya do not understand that culmination of perfection or self-realization depends upon Vishnu. Vishnu Maya means sense enjoyment, which is transient and miserable. Those who are entrapped by Vishnu Maya utilize advancement of knowledge for sense enjoyment. Sri Narad Muni has explained that all paraphernalia of cosmic universe is but an emanation from the Lord out of his different energies, because Lord has set in motion by his inconceivable energy actions and reactions of the created manifestation. They have come to be out of his energy. Rest of his energy, and after annihilation, they merge into him. Nothing is therefore different from him. At the same time, Lord is always different from them. When advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, whole process becomes absolute. Personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, fame, glory, etc., are all non-different from him. Therefore, all the sages and devotees of the Lord have recommended that subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Art, literature, poetry, painting, etc., may be used in glorifying the Lord. Fiction writers, poets, and celebrated literatures are generally engaged in writing of sensuous subjects. But if they turn toward the service of the Lord, they can describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Valmiki was a great poet. Similarly, Vyasadeva is a great writer, and both of them have absolutely engaged themselves in delineating the transcendental activities of the Lord. By doing so, have become immortal. Similarly, science and philosophy also should be applied in the service of the Lord. There is no use presenting dry speculative theories for sense gratification. Philosophy and science should be engaged to establish the glory of the Lord. Advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science, and therefore a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. Similarly, philosophical speculations should be utilized to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. Similarly, all the branches of knowledge should always be engaged in service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, also the same is affirmed. All knowledge not engaged in the service of the Lord is but nescience. Real utilization of advanced knowledge is to establish glories of the Lord, and that is the real import. Scientific knowledge engaged in the service of the Lord and all similar activities are factually Hari Kirtan or glorification of the Lord. Om Jnanam Timirindasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapad Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhandatam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpataruvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. So idam hi pumsas tapasa shutasya va sivatasya suktasya cha buddhitayoh avijitto artah kavibhir nirupito yad uttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. So very nice verse, and we can see how elaborate purport has been given by Srila Prabhupada. And concluding into that, if anything that can be used or everything should be used in the service of the Lord, and it will find its perfection. That is what I could see towards the end of the purport. he has been elaborating in detail how every ability that is in the men, because men is intellectually able to understand science, physics, philosophy, art, music, and how all of that can be painting, all of that can be utilized in the service of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada has actually demonstrated this, that how he particularly utilized his writing skills uh, in spreading the glories of the Lord, in in ensuring that he could develop faith in the people of the world, whether they are from India or anywhere else in the whole world. And he could perfectly do it because of the purity and faith in the Lord. Now, similarly, we can see how he utilized the abilities of all his disciples in generating so many beautiful paintings, which we can see are part of his books. Also, we can see them being used in all the temples. So the art of singing and dancing, everything can be utilized in the service of the Lord. And particularly the point of science, he says that good scientists should try to develop faith of people in general in developing faith towards God or existence of God. And in this, particularly in this remark or in this context, he said that we should establish a planetarium which can, according to Vedic science, demonstrate how the seasons are changing, how the rotation of the sun across the universe is bringing about changes, various kind of changes in the world, seasonal changes and the day and night changes, the control of time. And he has given these tremendous calculations everywhere, wherever possible, in numbers, so that the modern scientist can take reference of the scriptures and verify the distances between Earth and other planets. There are many things which are beyond the scope of science perception, but still scientists can at least try to get where scriptures are telling and gauge an idea. And that way, he wanted to establish a full-fledged planetarium with the positions of all the planets, positions of Dhruv planet. He mentioned, if you have seen this video, how Dhruv planet is the center of the universe. And from this Dhruv planet, there are these invisible lines. And on each of this line are there these planetary systems, 14 planetary systems. And like that, all of them are invisibly connected to the center point, which is Dhruv planet. And that Dhruv planet is rotating like a chandelier, And all the planets which are connected are also rotating according to this chandelier. So they are rotating, and Dhruv planet remains the center of the universe. So there are many facets of science that can be disclosed by this planetarium. And he had this great desire to establish this planetarium in Mayapur Dham, now which we know now is being developed or is on its last stages of completion, the planet of the Temple of Vedic Planetarium. It is forecasted by Srila Prabhupada that entire world, and we should all invite all the scientists to this planetarium and demonstrate to them how the science, the revealed scriptures are truthful representation of what we are able to perceive. And therefore, with this logic, we can also say that how scriptures are representation, truthful representation, factual representation of what we cannot perceive. Therefore, when we walk on the path of self-realization, we would eventually be able to walk the path of perception to something that we cannot perceive, and gradually be able to perceive what we cannot perceive from senses, but by our consciousness. And therefore, the message of Krishna consciousness has to be broadcasted so that the consciousness become clear and completely cleansed of all kinds of dirty things in the heart. Now, if we look at this particular verse, let me just share the screen again. This is the point which is emphasized here. The point which is emphasized here is the purpose of advancement of knowledge, namely austerity, study of Vedas, sacrifice, chanting, culminates in transcendental description of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. So anything which does not really connect to the Lord, which is not in Hari Sambandha, that is not recommended. Rather, everything should culminate into description of the Lord. And if we are able to do that, then that reaches to perfection, because all austerities, all the Vedic studies should culminate, or charity culminate into the description of the Lord, because ultimately everything should unfold into the vision, into giving us a vision of the Lord, or the form of the Lord, which is personal form of the Lord. It's not nothingness of the Lord, right? So in this context, I was just studying this particular word, namely austerities. Of course, study of Vedas, etc., is there, but this particular austerity word is really something that we can look at in detail. Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in one of the lectures on chapter 16, 1 to 16. He's saying performance of, rather this is a read from these chapters. So there's a quote from 16, 1 to 3, which I have also pulled out here. So in this chapter, there is a performance of sacrifice, study of Vedas, austerity and simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion of fault-finding, compassion and freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, freedom from envy and passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharat, belong to godly men and endowed with divine nature. So this chapter actually is demoniac and divines. Chapter 16. And in this chapter, the very first verse, Krishna is describing the godly men who has divine natures. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada has touched upon many of these words, like austerity or tapasya is mentioned here. Austerity is especially meant for the retired life. One should not remain a householder throughout the life. Then he talks about austerity in different ways, in different places. He's saying austerity means complete, following the complete celibacy, and that is the austerity. So we will see how various kinds of austerities are there and how we can follow them so that we can develop these divine or godly qualities, what Sri Krishna is explaining in chapter 16, from verse number 1 to 3. There are many descriptions here. You can go in your own time, read this chapter, these verses, chapter 16, 1 to 3, read the verses, read the purport of first 3 verses. You'll find the qualities described. And particularly, we'll look at the 4 regulative principles that Srila Prabhupada has made mandatory for a person who is sincere to develop his spiritual path. And here we can see that there are 4 regulative principles. And first of all, there's no intoxication. And no intoxication, there's no meat eating, there's no illicit sex, and there's no gambling. Isn't not that what we go and take vows for when we take initiation? Now, all of these vows are denoting something or the other. So when there's no intoxication, it talks about uh, austerity. Austerity. When you don't take, you're trying to curb or subdue the urges of the senses, and mostly one has to abstain from alcohol, drugs, coffee, tea, nicotine, caffeine in particular. So because of this, the senses can come in control. And if they are not in control, they'll definitely give rise to various social and personal problems. One would become very greedy. The suicide rates also increases because of these drugs problem. Crime rate increases. So stopping all the intoxication is actually the remedy. Now, if we go to chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17 and verse number 16, that's where Krishna is saying, and satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerity of the mind. Self-control. That's the word, self-control. Purification of one's existence are the austerity of the mind. And how is that self-control demonstrated? By not getting pushed by the urges of the senses. That's how we demonstrate that sense control. Now, looking at cleanliness, or rather looking at no illicit sex. No illicit sex leads to complete cleanliness. Actually, because illicit sexual activity is lust and it's an obsession, leading into various kinds of social problems like rapes or STD, sexually transmitted diseases, or a whole pornography industry, leading to broken families. So these individuals are driven by lust, and the entire conversations, life are existed around sexually oriented. The whole existence is around the recreation via sex life. Now, by following no illicit sex, which means you stay in the marriage and you don't divorce, and you are not there to enjoy the senses of the partner, rather you're there to be together in the service of the Lord and somehow help each other to cross the boat of this material life, the Nisians. So in this regard, in chapter 7, verse number 11, Krishna has mentioned balam balvatam chaham kamaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamasmi bharatrishavah. I'm the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles, whole Lord of Bharat. So Krishna is saying that, okay, you have got this body and therefore you can indulge, but in connection to me, you indulge to produce Krishna conscious children according in complete rules and regulation. If one does not do that, one would fall prey to the sexual life, which will lead him into going to actually hellish life. Then we see the fourth pillar, or the third pillar is, we say, do not eat meat. No. And don't open slaughterhouses for the satisfaction of tongue. So this is a sign of compassion. This is a sign of mercy, a great compassion for all living entities, understanding that everybody is part and parcel of Supreme Lord. Mavevamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manasastani indriyani. What is the last line? Prakriti sastani karshati. So these six senses are there, and the soul, and there's a body, and Krishna is saying they are all my part and parcels. All the animals are my part and parcels. All the living entities, whether they are micro, macro, whatever they are, living entities, human beings, they are all my part and parcels. So when they are part and parcels, they're like brothers and sisters, and therefore you cannot just go and kill them and eat them and consume them because you have high intelligence. The higher intelligence is given to give protection to them, give mercy. And therefore, this third principle is pillar of dharma is very, very important to get peaceful society, because all the slaughterhouses are operative and they result into karmic reaction. And this karmic reaction appears in the mankind, various kinds of epidemics and floods and natural disasters. We just faced one pandemic worldwide. And according to the scriptures, we understand that they are coming as karmic reaction to slaughterhouses or animal killing. So this compassion has to be shown. In this regard, Krishna has spoken in chapter number 9, verse number 26. He says, Patlam pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya priyakshati tadam bhakti upaharatam ashnani priyatatmanaha. So if you offer me love with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, fruit of water, I'll accept. So Krishna is saying, I won't accept anything else. Hence, that cannot be connected to Krishna in the right way. Therefore, everything has to be connected to Krishna. Because we cannot connect animal sacrifice with Krishna, therefore there is no point in performing animal sacrifices. One can easily sustain life on eating vegetables, fruits, nuts, all kinds of milk preparations, all kinds of beets and grains, and we can make delicious offerings to the Lord. 108 offerings, 1008 offerings, so many offerings we make on the festival days. So there's plenty that can be done. And therefore that dharma, pillar of dharma, which is mercy, is invoked by not indulging into meat eating. One is indulging into meat eating, he will not be able to understand Krishna or devotional life, because of tamo guna will completely restrict his vision and senses into getting the transcendental vision, which is important for spiritual life. So he'll be in tamo guna, and he has to rise in mode of goodness, sattva guna, which can only happen if one is not indulging in meat eating. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada is very, very clear about it. Unless you stop drinking alcohol, drugs, etc., and stop eating vegetarian, he would not initiate you, because he would rather let you make that decision and come to that stage where you are in mode of goodness, and therefore you'll get a higher taste by austerity, by cleanliness, by mercy. You will get a higher taste, and that's where you can leave behind all the so-called, rather bad habits. So then the fourth pillar of dharma is truthfulness, and truthfulness is exercised by not indulging oneself into gambling, speculations, all kind of lotteries and share markets, etc., because it eventually leads you into a lot of anxieties and leads you into the mentality of exploitation by cheating or by not working hard at all. If it gives false hopes of enjoyment in this material life. One is very hopeful, if buy a lotto, I've spent £2 or £5 or £10 and I can earn now millions. So it's a mentality of trying to get more than what I want, and it develops greed. It also restricts, it also builds a lot of anxiety in people, and ultimately it leads to untruthful life. Therefore, truthfulness, which is morality and chivalry or justice, this can be exercised by not indulging into all kinds of gambling activities. Wherever we feel there's a gamble, it's not just official gamble. In our lives, we make a lot of decisions. Wherever we feel there's a lot of gambling involved, it's best to refrain from that kind of activity so that we can focus on studying Shastra, on worshiping the Lord, on chanting our japa, on doing our worships, on visiting temple, and serving the devotees. If we have a speculative mind, anxieties, then the mind is going to take you on those websites where you can make more money. Invest some money here, invest some money there, I'll get more money tomorrow. And with that more money, when that money comes, I'll build a big house, I'll serve devotees. And this is the trick of Maya. This is the trick of Maya. And that is being discussed here. It's a trick of Maya. One should not get tricked by this Maya Devi like that. So these are the 4 pillars of Dharma, which are covered by various verses. For this, 16:7 is the verse which talks where Krishna says, those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. You see, no truth is found in them. So we were talking about truthfulness. 15:16:7. Sorry, Bhagavad Gita 16:7. So this way we understand how it is important. Now, if we read chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, we'll understand how Krishna is trying to give transcendental knowledge to Arjuna and saying to him that, look, all the sacrifices that are being done in this world are ultimately going to culminate into me. Similarly, in this verse, we see all the activities of the Lord, when you connect them with the Lord, they must culminate into Lord Krishna. Now here, Vyasdev is wondering as to why he's not very satisfied, and Narad Dev is now giving him this explanation that, look, you have not described about devotional service, you have not described about the personality of Godhead, because all the endeavor that you have made in making so many Vedas and Upanishads and all kind of Mahabharatas, historical evidences that you have produced is all to develop these 4 kind of dharma, artha, purushartha, 4 kind of purusharthas, kama, moksha. So the point is that if you now, it should all culminate into describing the Lord, his personal form. If you now do so, then that will be the perfection of your life. And that can be done through the devotional service, not by just studying the Shastra or Vedic knowledge. You gain some kind of Vedic knowledge. That cannot be done by that. Or you do some austerities, you chant some hymns and do some charities. On its own, they are no good. But the moment these austerities connect to Krishna, the moment these charities connect to Krishna, the moment Shastra's knowledge connects us to Krishna, and the moment we hear about Krishna, then that is ultimate perfection of life, because Vasudev Sarvam Miti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Such soul is very rare who can conclude that Lord Krishna, Vasudev, is all in all, son of Nanda Maharaj. And the goal of life is to obtain his love, to develop the dormant love in our heart, by serving or by engaging our senses into devotional service. If one does not have understanding of personal form of God, there is no possibility of developing this loving attitude, loving service attitude towards the Lord, which means there is no possibility of devotional service to the Lord. And hence, the whole goal of human life will be completely missed out. So this verse is really establishing, because after this verse, Narad Muni is going to describe his own life to establish that it's only by hearing process, it's only by performing devotional service to the personal form of the Lord is one can perfect their life, one can come to the transcendental realization that Krishna is God and develop that loving relationship with the Lord, as Narad Muni has done. So his life will start from the next verse onwards. I'll conclude this here, this verse, because next verse is going to start a whole new chapter of life. Narada tells of his life. That's the next section. Very beautiful, very interesting. Okay, is there any question, a comment? We can take that now. Hare Krishna. If somebody wants to write on the chat box, you can do that.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dana Pranam, Sarvesh Prabhat. Just an observation, Prabhuji, that it says by Acharyas that both a devotee and non-devotee can be doing the same action or the same work, but for a devotee, it is focused on Krishna, for Krishna's pleasure, whereas non-devotee it isn't. So I think from a generalized perspective, I think it is true, of course, being in markets, etc., are wrong, but it's not to say that a devotee with the right consciousness can also be active in such things, but doing it with Krishna consciousness in mind. So both mundane and devotees can be engaged in the same actions, but one is doing it for Krishna's pleasure. So it's not necessarily true that if a devotee is doing such things that they are leading to non-devotional life.
I am not fully able to comprehend the comment, but what I understood was that if devotees are doing certain thing and non-devotees are doing certain things, the intention.
So, for instance, you said that to be in the markets would lead to degradation and sinful acts. A devotee being in markets, doing it with the right consciousness, is not necessarily degrading his path of devotion.
I see. Okay. So, the Srila Prabhupada said that one can give him all the money and he can utilize it in Krishna's service. So that's a devotee. If somebody's on the path of self-realization and his senses are controlled, not so controlled, and mind is not so controlled, it's frivolous, then it's best to take not to take chances. But if somebody's at the platform of pure devotional service, where there's no material desires left in the heart, there's no lust, anger, greed, then that's okay. But if there is elements of greed, the greed will breed more greed, and it will continue on, because ultimately it will lead to failure in the transcendental pursuit. Therefore, if one is able to develop a pure devotion service, thereafter there's no problem, because all rules and regulations will be finished. Once you come into the stage of pure devotion service, there's no rules and regulations. But when we are walking on the path of bhakti, at that time, we have to take huge precautions where we don't take a lot of chances, knowingly, at least consciously. We do not justify it by thinking that we can control our senses. It is very much like addiction. If somebody wants to get rid of addiction, it's best to associate with who can help him rid of addiction and do not indulge in those addictions. So various activities, just on market, many activities are there which will lead to indulgence, and therefore for devotees who are very sincere, it's recommended that we live simple life, depend upon Krishna for most of our needs, and take only whatever is required, and do not endeavor excessively for more. I asked a question with Amrish Prabhu. He is Mr. Ford, as we all know. I asked him that, Prabhu, we need to be self-sufficient in terms of financially, and therefore opening businesses, etc., is quite beneficial, or making money somehow or the other, and make a very self-sustained, financially self-sustained structure. And once we do that, then we don't need to really worry about finances, because we are always begging people for money. So he gave me a wonderful answer. He said he's born in golden spoon, we all know silver spoon, and he has been really instrumental in building the Vedic Planetarium Temple. I think he donated 200 crore rupees or more. So, and then he has been begging one city to another city, begging everybody, begging, give the money. He said to me that, look, what's happening to the body of church is that they became self-sufficient. Law of money came in, and then what happened? Degradation happened. A huge degradation happened. And then he said, maybe Krishna doesn't want us to become financially very strong and stable. Maybe Krishna wants us to struggle and develop this project with lifetime endeavors, so that in the process we become very purified and we do not get degraded in our approach. So it's a vast subject. Depending upon individuals, under direction of senior devotees, one can navigate their lives in a way that they work into their own kind of mentality or own ashram one ashram system. According to their, if they're Vaisya mentality, they must do business, etc. But they know their boundaries, and they must always be in the supervision of seniors who can guide them. So in that way, seniors means those who are Brahminical qualities. Brahminical quality person can guide the people in Kshatriya qualities or Vaishya qualities. So they can Brahminical qualities or culture can protect the rest of the Varnas in overindulging or making some serious wrong moves which can jeopardize their spiritual life. And therefore, in this purport, when we read, in this particular purport that we read, Srila Prabhupada is just talking about entire Varnashram system. So I hope that clears. There's no right or wrong here, but I think the guidance of Brahman and understanding our own nature and our pursuit to spiritual life will determine that what we should not do at all and what we should do. Does that make sense? I don't know. Shailesh Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you. I wasn't arguing against that point. All I was saying is that for a pure devotee can act in many different spheres without being implicated in the. That was the point. Is that one can't judge just because a pure devotee happens to be in a particular profession that might not be. In the normal sense of the word, recommended profession or a varna or an act. It does not necessarily taint them.
So we have to read the definition of pure devotee, then we'll appreciate it much.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with that point at all, Prabhuji. I agree with you. I'm just saying that it's not as simple as one says on the face of it. Yeah.
Whatever helps us to develop our faith in Krishna, we should do. And if it shakes our faith, then it's better not to get involved. We are sadhakas, sadhakas, neophytes, and we need a lot of protection. Those who are completely nishtha, brahmanistha, they can guide us, they can help us, they can hold our fingers, and then take us to the next ladder of the yoga, of bhakti yoga. But till such time, we need a lot of protection. That's how Maya works. It may make us feel that we are advanced. It may also make us feel that we're doing right things. And therefore, we need guidance of Brahminical devotees who can tell us, okay, slow move here, do this, do that. And in their navigation and under their direction, under their mercy, we can perhaps progress in a safer way. That's the only thing I can say. Okay, thank you very much. We'll finish our class here. There's a question here. I'll just take this question if you all don't mind. Hello, thanks for the class. Same actions are done by devotees and count people. Simple example, many kids by KC devotees, one devotee with 3 by 4 kids, and going on ultra rich devotees and all the good stuff. But if a common man with good karma has that, will it be called purely materialistic? They may be good. Okay, so how the way law of karma works is that whatever karma we have done in the past brings us result. Somebody is very wealthy or born in a wealthy family, it's his karma. But if somebody is not born in a very wealthy family and trying to become now wealthy, if it is not there in the karma, his endeavor will go in vain, and a false hope and pessimism and frustration will arise. So the best thing is advice that Krishna has given, that you stay equiposed in all those conditions, whether you're born in a rich family, not born in a rich family, understanding that wealth has no relationship with happiness, and wealth has no relationship with my present karma. My present karma is determining my future, my destiny, and my present is governed by the past karmas that we have done. So if these are material vision of wealth, we may think somebody's very rich, somebody's very poor, because of the allocation of the wealth to them due to their past karmas. But in spiritual knowledge, there is absolutely no advantage of somebody who has more wealth and disadvantage somebody who has no wealth. And in spiritual dimension, actually, more wealth is considered to be obstruction in the spiritual life. And there are purpose after the purpose on this theme by Srila Prabhupada. And it's best not to over endeavor and stay satisfied with what we have. So the question is, but if a common man with good karma has that, will it be called purely materialistic? It will not be called materialistic. If somebody has it, he has it by karma. Demigods have so much of opulence, so much of opulence. Many people on the planet Earth, they don't work nothing, but still have so much of opulence, and others who work so hard have no opulence. Materialistic or non-materialistic is not governed by the wealth we have, but it is governed by the consciousness of how utilizing that wealth. That is what governs the definition of materialism. Materialism is, if I use that wealth for my sense enjoyment, it's materialistic. If I use that wealth for expanding Krishna consciousness, for worshiping the Lord, for glorifying the Lord, for dovetailing all my activities in the service of, then that's not materialistic. That's very nice. That's the job of all the wealthy people. That's the job of the king. That's the job of the head of the state who has control over the wealth. That's his job. But unfortunately, that's not what happens. With a lot of wealth, the intelligence gets contaminated, and it kind of blocks your way to the spiritual life, to the vision of Shastra. Materialistic people, unfortunately, they start thinking themselves to be the controller, or non-materialistic also. In that matter, devotees, they don't. They all already know that Krishna is the controller. That answers the question. There's a comment here. Wonderful session. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. So, Suri Mataji, I hope that is a logical more to it. Please let me know. Okay. I'll pay my obeisances to all the sample devotees here.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful session.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Krishna.